Welcome back. Today I'm going to attempt to solve some puzzles on chess.com. That's one of the ways that I practice getting better at chess. If you're new to my channel, I'm not a titled player or a chess coach or an expert. I'm just a random person trying to get better at chess. And solving puzzles is one of the ways that I do that. That's on the wrong tab. That's my stats page. That should have been my puzzles page. If you're new to my channel, you'll know that there are bloopers occasionally. There's the puzzles page. I try to edit out most of the bloopers, but that one took place directly in the middle of my introduction. So let's just click on puzzles. I am rated at 2065 in puzzles on chess.com right now. Hopefully I won't embarrass myself any further in this video, and I will continue to go upward in ratings. The first thing that I look for is checks. I don't think I have any checks in this position. Second thing I look for is captures, and it looks like the only capture I have in this position is this pawn right here on e5. And threats is the next thing that I look for. I do have a threat, which is moving this bishop here to attack their queen. That's actually a double threat because both my bishop and my rook would be pointed at the queen. Let's go back to the captures first, though, since that is, oh, you know what? That's not a good capture. I just now saw that the queen is guarding that square. Okay, well, I'm not going to do that one then. Let's see, what else do we have? Well, I went on to threats. I came up with this bishop pointed at the queen. It looks like the queen could just get out of danger at that point. I mean, it could just move up one square, but if it did that, then of course I would bring my rook over, but then it could just take this pawn. So I don't think the queen is trapped, so that doesn't do anything except make the queen move. It could go all the way back. I think those are the two safe squares. If I attacked the queen on g7, then I could take this pawn, and I would be threatening the rook, and my queen would be protecting the bishop, and my knight would be protecting my g-pawn. But that just looks like winning a pawn. I don't know what I would do if they went all the way back. I suppose I could just take the pawn with my rook, and then I would be threatening, with my bishop, and then I would be threatening their undefended rook there in the corner, which of course could just move. But again, I'm just winning a pawn. So that makes me think that there's something else in this puzzle that I am missing. I just don't know what it is. Wait a minute. Let me go back to the first capture that I saw, the only capture that I have in this position. I said the reason that I shouldn't do that is because their queen's guarding that square. If their queen took there, which I don't know that it would, it might do something else. But let's say that it did take there, then I could put my bishop on g7, would be threatening the queen, protected by my queen, and if the queen moved out, I would get their rook. But they don't have to take. They could just let me have the pawn and then move their rook somewhere. Just like here, but then I would take their rook, and then they could take my knight. I'm just really not sure. As I said, if I take this pawn and they take it, I don't think that they would, though, because, again, I could pin their queen to their rook. What else could they do if I took this pawn? Because that's my candidate move right now, because, again, I do want their queen to go there, but the queen doesn't have to. But I would be threatening their rook at that point, so they would just move the rook. They could just move it here to f6, or they could just drop it back. And then what have I gained? But the pawn. Let me go back to this. That was the first thing that I saw, that their queen might be trapped. Okay, they have two options, right? They can drop it back here, or as I said, they can go to h7. If they go to h7, then I can bring the rook over. And from there, I said that they would take this pawn, probably, because that's safe there. But then I can take this pawn, and I'm threatening the queen and the rook. Okay, so let's say that they see that, and they don't want to end up there when I take that pawn. So then they drop back. Then what do I do? Do I still take the pawn? Or do I still bring the rook over? Well, I've already spent, 5-6 minutes on this puzzle, and it's a little embarrassing, but those are my two choices. I don't see anything else, but I'm just leaning toward, if I go there, they can just move the rook out of the way, and winning one pawn, I don't think, has ever been the answer to a puzzle. I don't know. I've got to do one of those things. I've spent too much time. I'm going to move the bishop to g7. It's a coin toss for me at this point because I really don't know what I gain other than that pawn. They went to the one that I said they wouldn't go to because I'm going to go here, and they're going to end up taking this pawn, and then I'm going to fork their... Okay. Why didn't they go back? We'll have to go to the analysis board to find out. I think what I have to play first is rook to h8 in this scenario because the bishop's protected. And if they take the pawn, I'll fork them. I'm pretty sure the answer is to take the queen. Oh, and it stops there. Okay, that puzzle was rated 2132, and It probably should be. The theme was trapped piece. Again, we already showed that it's not actually trapped. I'm going to go to the analysis board. Okay, they played the rook to f3. Nobody knows why. That move didn't do anything. Okay, it definitely was in my best interest to play here. What would they have done if I had played this? Oh, okay, they would have taken my bishop, and I would have taken back, maybe, although I had several moves that were about even, and then they would have gotten my knight. Okay, so I guessed that going up 2 minor pieces for a rook and a pawn would actually be slightly in their favor. Oh, and it says that they're up on material. Did I do the math wrong? Oh, they were already up on material. Oh, yeah, because we already said I have an extra minor piece, but I'm down a rook. So I was already down 3 points of material here because of that. Oh, okay, but back to the original position. Whoops. Okay, they moved the rook. So in this case, why didn't they go to h3? Well, Stockfish 16, which is now Stockfish 16 Lite for some reason instead of actual Stockfish 16. What? Okay, see here it says 16. Oh, okay, browser analysis is light, HCE only. I don't know what HCE means. Is that something like a head injury? And Stockfish 16 requires a 45 megabyte download. See, used to, those weren't the choices. One said Stockfish 16 and one said Stockfish 16 NNUE, which required a 45 megabyte download. Are they the same things that it always used to be? Sorry, oh, you can't see the drop-down menu. Okay. Yeah, see, one says this now, Stockfish 16 45 megabyte download, and the other one says Stockfish 16 Lite. They've changed the wording there, and I don't know what the difference is. Okay. But anyway, okay, they're even. It says that they're even, this and this. Okay, so what's wrong with going back here? Then what would I do? If that's what they had done, I would still play rook to h8. Okay, but then they would just move the queen out of the way. It says that they would just take... Okay. It says they would just take my rook. Why in the world wouldn't they just move over? Oh, if they moved over there, I would fork them. I'm forking the rook and the queen. Okay. So why wouldn't they just go here then? Because here I fork these two. Well, I'm glad I got it right, but I might have reached a point at which the puzzles have become too complex for me. I am going to click next and see what happens. I am playing with the white pieces. Okay, it looks like... Wait. Is this just a mate in one? Sorry, I've just had some coffee too, so I should be wide awake. This looks like a mate in one. That rook is pinned by my rook, and they don't have anything else that can guard this square. But I'm doubting myself. I'm serious. I'm afraid to move my queen there because I know this puzzle supposedly rated 2000 or higher, but it looks like a simple, very simple mate in one. I was just distracted initially by how much material I'm down. That puzzle was rated 1955, which is hidden slightly behind the corner of my little camera window here. Next puzzle. I am playing with the black pieces. First thing I look for is checks. I do have a check here, which would be protected by my queen, and it would be a fork, but I think they would just capture it with their knight, so I don't think that's good. I also have a check here, which I think they could just capture with their king. I also have a check, queen to h4 check, but I think they can just block that with the pawn, and then, yeah, and then I wouldn't have any recourse after that. Okay, what about captures? The only capture that I see currently is that knight. Oh, and this pawn. That's what I would be tempted to do here in a game, but then I would realize, oh, my bishop's hanging. If I move my queen. Right now, my queen is protecting my bishop. But that pawn isn't causing any immediate threat. All it's doing is being very irritating, blocking off a couple of my development squares, keeping me from moving this pawn so I can't get this knight out there or there. So yeah, it's an irritating pawn, but it's not a danger. Another thing I would be tempted to do here in a game is castle, and I would be tempted to play bishop to d4, which threatens the queen and asks it to move someplace. I don't know where it would move, but it looks like it could just move, right? It could just go over there. But this looks viable. Let's just think about this for a second. I mean, the queen's not going to go here because I could then capture it with my bishop or my queen. So I guess it could just move over one. But then once my bishop's out of the way, I would have this check. But then they could block with their queen. But if they blocked with their queen, then I would check with my bishop. Oh, but then they could just move and still be protecting their queen. Then I would have to take the queen. I don't know. Oh my goodness, what is it? Is there any other threat? I can hop my knight there. That's no good because they can just take it while developing a piece and break my pawn structure. I can't move this bishop at all. I can castle, which is never the answer to a puzzle. Not once. even when it looked really good. I've never, in the hundreds, if not maybe a few thousand puzzles, never was castling the right answer. Taking the pawn gives up my bishop. Taking the knight moves the rook over, and then I would have this check, but then they would just move their king up, and they would have lost the right to castle, but then I've just moved, that's all. Okay, well, I'm really frustrated with myself for starting this video because I can't figure it out. There are several choices, several things that I would play in a game here. In a game, if I had to evaluate the position, I would guess it's very close to 0 because it looks like we're even on material. At some point, they gave up their dark squared bishop for my kingside knight, probably on f3 is my guess. I mean, f6 right here, probably. They took that knight and I took with my queen, and that's how my queen got over here. It looks like we both have all our pawns. Somehow they got their d pawn all the way past here, past both of those pawns, but we're even on material. I've penetrated a little further than they have with a piece, but they've penetrated with a pawn. We're both taking up a little bit of space on the opponent's side. And as I've already indicated, I'd be very tempted to castle here or to play this in a game. I think right now, I may fail this puzzle. That happens. I think I'm going to play this. And the reason I've leaned toward that is because it gains a tempo. I know the queen can move out of danger. It looks like it has several options. It might go there, offering me a queen trade, because their knight or their king could take back there. It might just slide over right here next to my bishop. And so if I went down there to check on c1, then they could block. It might, guess it could just go over 1 here or 2. In fact, if it went over 2, it would be protecting this pawn. But if it doesn't go to one of these squares on the d file, then I will have the follow-up check, as I mentioned, on c1, which loses them the right to castle. If it does go to one of those 2 squares, and remember my bishop's here on d4, then I'm going to hit the b pawn, which I think wins the rook. That's why I'm going to move the bishop to d4, but it could be wrong. And if it is, we'll find out why. Okay, they are offering the queen trade. Again, if I take it, that helps them develop a piece, and it frees the rook. But if I go here, what do they do? What do they play if I take on b2? Do they take my queen and mess up my pawn structure? But I'll still get the rook, right? I think then even if they moved the knight after that exchange, then I would still get the rook. Oh, I don't know. Okay. Well, I said one of the reasons that I said I would move it there is if they moved to one of those 2 squares, I could take the b pawn. My queen is protected. I think I win the rook this way. Okay. Well, I shouldn't take the rook now. If I take the rook now, they save their queen. So I have to take the queen first. Oh, and it stopped there. I've only done 3. I know it says 13 in a row, but that's including previous sessions, and I don't believe I've gotten 13 in a row. I'm pretty sure I remember losing a puzzle in one of my recent videos. That might have been that might have been Puzzle Rush Survival. Okay, but I do have time for at least 1 more if I take this long on it, maybe 2 or 3 more. Let's see if I can go a little faster, but the ultimate goal is to figure stuff out. Oh, wow. I've developed nothing. I developed the knight and then lost it, and then I've developed the bishop. As always, let's look for checks. Let's look for captures. Let's look for threats. I don't think they're threatening me in any way, even though my king's a little open. Doesn't look like they have any checks forthcoming on me. But I have a couple of checks on them. I can check them on f7. I can check them on h5 with my queen, but the queen one looks pretty defensible. I mean, as does f7. Right? If I check on f7, I think they just take it, and then I would have a follow-up check, but then they could just go back. I could play queen to f3 first, threatening a mate here, but I think they can defend against that, can't they? Yeah, they could just put one of these pieces on f6, and then my queen's not pointed at f7 anymore. Again, in a game right here, I would be tempted to castle, just like in that last puzzle, or take this pawn. Then I would have 2 center pawns. I guess the problem with taking the pawn might be that that would line up a check right here. That could be a problem. Yeah, right now, they're about to do that anyway. As soon as this pawn's not there, they'll probably take first. And then when I take back, they want to put this bishop over here. I don't know. I really, wow. Either my brain's in a fog today or these puzzles are just really difficult. But right, this check fails to the pawn. And then I don't have, sometimes if you check over here, and they block, well, there's a pawn here that you can just take. But that's not the case here. There's nothing across here that I can take. There's nothing down here that I can take. They would just block with the pawn and my queen would be in danger. And again, the only threat that I see is here. And we've already discussed they could place either one of these minor pieces on f6 to block the threat, then my queen's not doing anything. And then sure, I could still check over here if they had blocked that with the bishop, but they could still block with the pawn. So I could take the knight, and that would ruin their right to castle. And then I could check over here, and if they blocked with the pawn or moved out of check, then I would get this pawn and be threatening the rook. Oh, I don't know. I might be tempted to do that in a game as well. You know what? After I took that other pawn, I don't know what they would have done there. Okay, well, I think it's down to those two moves. Is it taking the knight first to mess up their pawn? I mean, to mess up their right to castle and then checking so when they block, I take the pawn? Or is it checking first? What do I play once they block with the pawn? Do I come back here and threaten the mate? Wait. Okay, I was talking about their pawn, their, what, d4 pawn a second ago, thinking they might be about to take my c pawn. Right? Because I'm not going to take them because then they have this check and then their bishop is protected there. But if it was their turn, they might be ready to take this pawn. So when I took back, maybe they would come in here and then my piece would be pinned to the king. No, I did. Oh my goodness, I'm so frustrated. I lost 12 points because I was trying to draw an arrow and the board thought I wanted to move that pawn. It's probably my fault. I know, it's probably my fault. I probably accidentally moved the pawn, but, well, I've already failed it, so let's, oh, that was it. Now what am I, okay, what I was trying to say there is that this pawn is an irritation to me. So what I could do here is instead of coming back to f3 to threaten mate, the thing I had just noticed is that I could go to d5, threatening the same mate, but also threatening to get rid of this pawn. I don't know if that's right or not, but it might be since my first move was right. Okay, that is right. And they've moved this out to protect against mate. So is the answer just taking this pawn? It doesn't matter, does it? I've already failed the puzzle. Yeah, it wasn't that. Okay. What was it? Why didn't I see that? Okay. Well, I deserve to fail that puzzle. Even if I hadn't made the mistake here, I probably would have gotten the first move wrong. And so did I end up with a, oh, it's not showing my rating here, but did I end up with a lower rating than I started? Well, hopefully you got something out of that. I don't know that I did. I'm pretty frustrated with this whole session, but maybe I need to take a week off of chess and just play. I was going to name another game that's not chess, that's not a strategy game, something that might just relax my mind, but I couldn't think of any example game that isn't chess. What, there's games with cards, right? Uno. There we go. I could play Uno or Go Fish or something for a week. Monopoly. There's a name of a game. Okay, it just took a second, but there are other games. I could play one of those and let my brain loosen up here and relax, stretch in a different direction or something. All right. Thank you for spending your time here. I do appreciate it, and I'll see you next time.